continuing with Winnie the Pooh's bedtime stories. And if you remember last time, they had gone to visit Rabbit, and he said that his stories always put him to sleep. So let's see if we have any success. Rabbit's Rules of Order. Rabbit was acting even more like Rabbit than usual. As far as he was concerned, absolutely nothing was going right in the entire 100-acre wood. It was harvest time in his garden, and he had suggested, mind you, he hadn't demanded anything, that it might be nice if he had a little help picking and bringing in all his fruits and vegetables. And no one had shown up. It was already 5 o'clock in the morning. The sun had been up for almost 10 minutes, and there had not been so much as one knock on his front door from a friend ready for work. Rabbit didn't think he was being unreasonable. He knew it wasn't his friend's garden, but what could they have to do that was more important or more satisfying than working in his fields? Pooh most certainly isn't even out of bed yet, Rabbit sniffed with a superior air. Or if he is, he's eating a breakfast that will continue until lunchtime. Rabbit flopped down in his armchair in frustration. And is Pooh's friend Piglet helping him along so they can get to my house for a bit of work? He asked himself. Of course not. Piglet's in the middle of cleaning his house again, as if it could get any cleaner. Rabbit pulled his ears down under his chin, and Gopher is too interested in the underground to lower himself and come up to see what happens on top of it for a change. As he continued thinking about his friends and neighbors, Rabbit grew increasingly upset, almost tying his ears into a knot under his chin. That annoying jester Tigger would rather bounce over fruit trees than help me harvest them, he complained. And Eeyore's probably sitting in that silly old shed he calls home, if he isn't rebuilding it because it's fallen down again, thinking I meant someone else when I asked him. Rabbit sighed and leaned back in his chair. Anyway, even if they all did show up on time, ready to pitch in and work, they'd all go about it inefficiently, each of them doing chores in his own little way instead of in the right way, my way. Rabbit rested his very tired head in his hands. It was hard work thinking about how other people should run their lives in some sort of organized manner. Because it was harvest time, Rabbit had not slept at all well the night before. Now, not even aware that he had closed his eyes, Rabbit fell sound asleep, snoring gently with an occasional twitch of one ear or the other. He dreamed a very rabbit sort of dream. He no longer lived in the 100-acre wood. It was instead the 100-acre garden, and fields of ripe vegetables and overflowing fruit trees reached as far as the eye could see from Rabbit's front porch. Rabbit rubbed his hands together in gleeful anticipation. What a wonderful harvest this would be! Then his ears began to droop as he realized it would take him so long they'd have to start the spring planting before he'd finished harvesting. So what are you waiting for? Demanded a familiar voice. Rabbit turned, and there stood Pooh, but not exactly Pooh. The silly old bear had ears just like Rabbit's, close-pinned to his own, and a soft, round cottontail fastened to the back of his red jersey. It's time to get to work, said Pooh, thrusting a shovel into the startled Rabbit's hands and stomping off towards the fields. Pooh? Rabbit breathed after him in a very awestruck voice. Don't be silly, Rabbit, squeaked a high voice. I'm Piglet. Rabbit swung around and looked down in surprise to discover Piglet standing beside him next to a wheelbarrow full of freshly harvested potatoes. To Rabbit's amazement, Piglet was also sporting a pair of very small rabbit ears and a tiny tail. Piglet pulled a small pail and a very large scrub brush from the wheelbarrow and pushed them into Rabbit's hands, almost causing him to drop the shovel. These potatoes are filthy, declared Piglet. I'm not harvesting another one until you've got them cleaned up. Before Rabbit could utter but Piglet, Tigger bounced into view, complete with rabbit ears and tail, and dropped a basket full of apples on Rabbit's toes. Need to make a little more of these baskets if you expect to keep 'em with my apple-picking, bunny boy, Tigger declared. Hop to it. It's the only way to get anything done. Hop, hop, hop. Tigger leaned closer and whispered into Rabbit's ears. I shouldn't have to tell that to a rabbit, bunny boy. He winked and bounced off. While Rabbit was still trying to think up an answer, Gopher, his rabbit ears and tail dirty from digging, popped up out of the ground at Rabbit's feet and pulled a huge water can up after him. No time for baskets, Rabbit, he whistled. We'll have to water your crops. Of course we do, agreed Rabbit. I water them all the time. But you do it in such a sloppy way, Gopher snapped. There's only one efficient way to water crops. He pointed into the ground. From the roots up. Gopher grabbed Rabbit's elbow and pulled him towards the tunnel. Not so fast, Bright Eeyore, as he joined the group, wearing his bunny ears and tail. I want to know why we have to carry these fruits and vegetables to sheds to store them. Why can't we just build sheds over them? Pooh stomped back to the group. Come on, Rabbit, he ordered. We're wasting daylight. I'm afraid we're going to have to skip lunch if we're ever going to finish on time. But, Pooh, protested Rabbit, we haven't even had breakfast yet. Don't worry, Rabbit, said Pooh as he patted Rabbit on the back. We'll have breakfast tomorrow. Tomorrow, shouted Rabbit, aghast. After we work all night, agreed Pooh. Good idea, Rabbit. But, Rabbit sputtered. But it was no use. Everyone began talking at once at the top of their voices, wriggling their long rabbit ears, shaking their round rabbity tails. Rabbit didn't know where to look or whom to listen to, so he closed his eyes and yelled, Help! as loudly as he could. Rabbit instantly woke up and heard knocking at his front door. Thank goodness, he said with a sigh. It was only a dream. Then he jumped up out of his chair to see who was calling. He found Pooh, Piglet, Tigger, Eeyore, and Gopher standing on his front porch, ready to help him with his harvest. Rabbit was relieved to note that the only rabbity ears and tail to be seen were his own. Here we are, Rabbit, announced Pooh, ready to work. Just tell us what you want us to do, Long Ears, said Tigger, and we'll get it done. No, Rabbit held up his hands in protest. You all work the way you want to. I'm grateful for the help, but I certainly don't want to tell you how to be yourselves. He laughed nervously. I'm sure you're all quite capable of doing what you think is best, and that's the most efficient way to go about it. And when we're done, I'll prepare you all a wonderful supper. My, whispered a surprised Pooh to the others when Rabbit went to fetch some tools. That doesn't sound like Rabbit at all. Oh, it's him all right, snickered Tigger. No one else would wear those ears and that tail. Pooh looked at Rabbit and Tigger. They were both fast asleep with their heads resting on the kitchen table, snoring quietly back and forth. Well, said Pooh, very unsleepy Pooh, to himself. At least he finished the story this time. Pooh left Rabbit's house, closing the door softly behind him, and began to stroll through the woods once again. Where am I going to find a bedtime story that will put me to sleep? He asked no one in particular. Perhaps a very small story, one that's not so large it keeps the bear awake. He stopped his musing and smiled. Of course, why didn't I think of it before? But Pooh, protested Piglet a few minutes later, the only story I know by heart is the one you made up about me. I did? Said Pooh in surprise. Yes, it's a poem you made up one day when I was feeling very, very small. Piglet shied, poking at the ground with the big toe of his very small foot. It was about me. Sort of. That sounds like a small enough story to me, said Pooh. How does it go? But Pooh, it was your very own poem, said Piglet. I knew what it was once, explained Pooh, but all I remember now is that I don't remember it. All right, Pooh, gulped Piglet nervously. Here goes. So that will be our next story. Piglet's story that was told to him by Pooh. Thank you for joining me. I hope that you have enjoyed this story, and I look forward to sharing the next one with you.